If I opened your refrigerator right now, which vegetable in there is actually helping your blood pressure, and which one is just taking up space and making you feel better emotionally, without really doing much for your arteries? Because a lot of people here eat more vegetables and assume all vegetables are doing the same job. They are not. French fries are made from a vegetable. Pizza sauce came from a vegetable. A salty canned side dish drowning in sauce may have started as a vegetable, but by the time it reaches your plate, it may be doing almost nothing to support healthy blood pressure. So today, I want to make this very simple, very practical, and very real. You can be trying hard. You can be walking, cutting back on sugar, maybe even losing some weight, and still have a blood pressure that quietly creeps up on you. And what makes this tricky is that blood pressure does not always announce itself with dramatic symptoms. A lot of people assume, if I felt bad, I would know. Not necessarily. Many people feel mostly normal until the day their body finally says, I've had enough. And that is why I want you to stop thinking about vegetables as decoration and start thinking about them as tools, because some of them are surprisingly powerful. I'm Dr. Andrea Patrick. And after more than 2 decades caring for adults with blood pressure problems and the consequences that come from ignoring them, I can tell you this with a straight face. Your kitchen matters more than most people realize, especially when it comes to the foods you repeat over and over again. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the vegetables I personally think deserve a front row seat if your goal is healthier blood pressure. Not because they are trendy, not because somebody online called them a superfood, because they actually make sense for how the body works. Before I give you the list, though, I need you to understand one very important thing. Blood pressure is not just about salt. That is part of it, yes, but it is not the whole story. Your blood pressure reflects how tight or relaxed your blood vessels are, how much fluid your body is holding on to, how well your kidneys are balancing things, how stiff your arteries have become over time, and how inflamed your system is on a regular basis. That means the best vegetables for blood pressure usually help in more than one way. Some bring potassium, some bring magnesium, some bring fiber, some help your body make nitric oxide. And nitric oxide, by the way, is one of those molecules that I wish more people knew about, because it helps blood vessels relax and open up a bit. That matters. When your blood vessels are constantly tense, your heart has to push against more resistance. When your vessels are more flexible, the job gets easier. Now, I'm not saying vegetables are a replacement for medical care if your pressure is seriously elevated. Please do not hear that. But I am saying that if you consistently choose the right ones, they can become part of the reason your numbers start moving in the right direction instead of drifting the wrong way. Also, just because a vegetable is healthy does not mean it is automatically helping you. Preparation matters, and this is where people get fooled. If the vegetable comes with a mountain of sodium, a heavy cream sauce, processed meat, or a deep fryer, you may cancel out a lot of the benefit. And if your blood pressure runs high, you really do want feedback. Check your blood pressure at home. Look at patterns. What happens after restaurant food? What happens after a week of home cooking? What happens when your plate starts containing more of these vegetables? Data changes behavior faster than guilt ever will. So let's start with the first group. And if you only remember one category from this whole video, let it be this one: leafy greens. Not because they are glamorous, because they are effective. Leafy greens tend to bring potassium, magnesium, fiber, and in many cases, natural nitrates, all of which can support healthier blood pressure. They also make it much easier to build a meal that is filling without being overloaded with sodium and calories. If somebody tells me they want better blood pressure and there are no greens showing up in their week, I already know one of the missing pieces. And among leafy greens, one of my absolute favorites is arugula. Yes, arugula. That peppery little leaf that a lot of people ignore because it doesn't look dramatic. Arugula is one of those vegetables that can quietly overperform, because it is naturally rich in dietary nitrates. Your body can convert those into nitric oxide, and that supports blood vessel relaxation. In plain language, it can help your circulation work a little more smoothly. I also like it because it is easy. You don't need to become a gourmet chef. Put it in a salad, tuck it into a sandwich, throw it next to eggs, or pile it onto a wrap. What makes arugula especially useful is that it does not ask for much from you. You do not have to steam it for 40 minutes. You do not need a complicated recipe. And when people are trying to build healthier habits, ease matters, because friction kills consistency. If your healthy food is too complicated, you will not repeat it. Arugula is one of those vegetables that slips into real life. And that is a theme I want you to notice in this video. The best blood pressure foods are not always the flashiest ones. They are often the ones you can actually keep eating without turning your whole life upside down. Next comes spinach. And spinach earns its place because it is a very practical blood pressure vegetable. It gives you potassium, magnesium, fiber, and those natural nitrates we just talked about. And it is one of the easiest greens to use in large amounts without even noticing. A handful disappears into soups. It wilts into pasta sauce. It blends into smoothies. It folds into scrambled eggs. It layers into sandwiches. And that matters because sometimes the best health strategy is not a dramatic overhaul. It is learning how to sneak more of the right things into meals you were already going to eat. Now, I do want to say this carefully. If you take spinach and turn it into a salty dip with chips, or you drown it in a creamy restaurant sauce, that is a different story. The spinach itself is not the problem. What usually happens is that the spinach rides along with a lot of extra sodium and saturated fat. So when I say spinach is a top vegetable, I mean spinach in a form that still lets it do its job. Sauté it lightly with olive oil and garlic. Toss it into lentil soup. Stir it into beans. Add it to an omelet. Keep it simple enough that the vegetable is still leading the meal. Another top-tier choice is Swiss chard. And while we're here, beet greens deserve to sit at the same table. These are not the greens that most people brag about online, but they are loaded with the kind of minerals your blood vessels appreciate. Swiss chard and beet greens can be especially rich in potassium, and potassium helps your body balance sodium more effectively. It also helps ease tension in the walls of your blood vessels. That is a big deal. I think of potassium as one of the quiet peacemakers in the body. When sodium is being loud and pushy, potassium helps calm the situation down. But this is also where I need to be responsible and tell you. If you have kidney disease, if you are on certain medications, or if your doctor has ever told you to be careful with potassium, please don't hear this video as permission to suddenly go extreme, especially with high potassium foods or salt substitutes. More is not always better in every body. Medicine is personal. That said, for many otherwise healthy adults trying to support normal blood pressure, getting potassium from actual food, instead of just focusing on what to remove, can be a very smart move. And Swiss chard or beet greens are excellent examples of that. Now let's talk about beets, because beets are one of the few vegetables that people have actually heard about specifically for blood pressure, and for once, the hype is not completely ridiculous. Beets are rich in natural nitrates, and that means they can support nitric oxide production and help blood vessels relax. Some people notice that beets or beet juice seem to move their numbers faster than other foods. That does not mean they are magic. It means their mechanism is pretty direct. When blood vessels are less stiff and less constricted, pressure can come down. Your circulation just has less resistance to fight against. The mistake people make with beets is thinking they only count if you drink some expensive juice from a fancy bottle. No, roasted beets count. Shredded beets in a salad count. Beets blended into hummus count. Sliced beets next to a grain bowl count. And they do not need to be a personality trait. Just eat them regularly enough for them to matter. And if you ever eat beets and then later panic because your urine or stool looks red, take a breath. That can happen. It is not always blood. It can simply be the pigments from the beets. Useful vegetable? Scary bathroom experience? Unfortunately, both can be true. If leafy greens and beets are your nitric oxide team, then broccoli is one of your structure and repair vegetables. I love broccoli for blood pressure because it is nutrient-dense, filling, versatile, and a very good replacement food, which is an underrated idea. Sometimes a vegetable helps your blood pressure not only by what it contains, but by what it pushes off the plate. If your dinner becomes roasted broccoli instead of fries, or broccoli added to a takeout meal instead of extra salty sides, you've already improved the situation. Broccoli gives you fiber, potassium, and a whole set of plant compounds that support vascular health and metabolic health more broadly. And broccoli also helps because it can make a lower sodium plate feel substantial. A lot of people keep reaching for ultra-processed food because they say healthy food does not satisfy them. Well, if your healthy meal is 3 baby carrots and a sad lettuce leaf, I agree, that is not satisfying. But a tray of roasted broccoli with olive oil, garlic, and pepper alongside salmon or beans is a real meal. That is different. When you build meals that are physically satisfying, your blood pressure plan becomes sustainable. So yes, broccoli is healthy in the abstract, but what I care about is whether it actually helps you repeat better decisions in real life. Staying in that same family, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and cabbage also deserve serious respect. I'm grouping them together because they are part of the cruciferous vegetable family, and this is a family I want more people to stop avoiding, because of old childhood trauma. Some of you had boiled cabbage or mushy Brussels sprouts as a kid, and you never emotionally recovered. I understand. But done properly, these vegetables are excellent. They bring fiber, helpful plant compounds, and a kind of meal-building bulk that makes overeating processed food less likely. And more recently, we've also seen growing interest in cruciferous vegetables specifically for vascular health and blood pressure support. One reason I like this group is that they are adaptable. Cabbage can become a crunchy slaw without a ton of sugar. Cauliflower can be roasted until it actually tastes good. Brussels sprouts can be halved and caramelized in the oven, and suddenly the vegetable you thought you hated becomes one of the better things on your plate. I also like the message this sends. Healthy blood pressure is rarely about one miracle food. It is about repeating patterns that keep inflammation, excess sodium, and vascular stress lower over time. Cruciferous vegetables fit beautifully into that kind of long game. Now let's move to tomatoes. And yes, I know, botanically they are a fruit. In most kitchens, they behave like a vegetable, so I'm including them. Tomatoes are one of my favorite blood pressure foods because they are easy to use, easy to enjoy, and associated with a better cardiometabolic pattern overall, especially when they replace more processed toppings in side dishes. Tomatoes bring potassium and antioxidant compounds like lycopene, and for many people, they are one of the easiest ways to make healthy food taste brighter. Sliced tomatoes with olive oil. Diced tomatoes in beans. Cooked tomatoes in a low-sodium sauce. Cherry tomatoes with lunch. This is very doable. The warning with tomatoes is not about the tomato. It is about the company the tomato keeps. If your tomato shows up in a pizza loaded with sodium, processed meat, and a refined crust, that is not the same thing as using tomatoes in a whole food meal. And this is where people accidentally overcredit one ingredient for a dish that is working against them overall. The tomato did its best. The rest of the plate was chaos. So when I say tomatoes are a top vegetable for healthy blood pressure, what I really mean is use tomatoes as part of meals that still let them help you, not as decoration on top of food that is sabotaging you. Carrots are another vegetable that I think gets underestimated because they seem too ordinary. But ordinary is often exactly what wins. Carrots are accessible, portable, naturally sweet, and easy to keep around, which means they have a better chance of actually showing up in your week. They bring potassium, fiber, and compounds that fit into a heart-supportive eating pattern. But beyond the nutrient story, carrots do something else that matters. They create a better snacking environment. If you reach for carrots and hummus instead of chips, you have not just added a vegetable. You have changed the sodium, calorie, and processed food equation of that moment. And you do not have to force carrots into some fake healthy identity. Roasted carrots are delicious. Shredded carrots in salads work. Carrots in soup work. Raw carrots with a bean dip work. And if you genuinely enjoy them, that counts for a lot. People talk about discipline like it is the whole story. It is not. Enjoyment predicts repetition. Repetition changes numbers. So yes, carrots may not have the marketing team that beets have, but don't overlook them. The boring vegetables that you actually eat consistently usually do more good than the exciting vegetables you buy once, feel virtuous about, and then discover as a science project in your produce drawer. Bell peppers absolutely belong on this list too, and I love them because they bring crunch, color, hydration, fiber, and vitamin C, while helping meals feel bigger and fresher without adding much of what pushes blood pressure the wrong way. Red, yellow, orange, green, I am not emotionally attached to which one you choose. What matters is that peppers make healthier plates easier to build. They bulk up stir fries. They make omelets better. They add sweetness to salads. They turn fajita-style meals into something far more vegetable forward. And when a meal has more real volume from vegetables, people often feel less pulled toward the extra bread, extra fries, extra salty side. There is another reason I like bell peppers, and it is a very practical one. They make it easier to eat lower sodium without feeling punished. When food has texture and brightness, you do not always need as much salt to make it satisfying. And that is something people overlook. Healthy blood pressure is not only about removing things. Sometimes it is about adding enough flavor, freshness, and bulk that the high sodium stuff loses some of its grip. Bell peppers help do that. They are not dramatic. They are not a cure, but they are one of those vegetables that quietly upgrades the whole meal. And that is how a lot of good blood pressure habits are built. Sweet potatoes deserve a spot here, but I need to be very clear that I am not talking about sweet potato fries from a restaurant, and I'm definitely not talking about the dessert version covered in sugar and marshmallows, because that is another example of a food losing the plot. A plain baked or roasted sweet potato, on the other hand, can be very useful. It provides potassium, fiber, and a kind of comforting fullness that can make a healthier plate feel emotionally satisfying as well as physically satisfying, and that matters. If your meals never feel comforting, you are going to drift back toward the foods that do. Sweet potatoes can help steady the meal. They pair well with greens, beans, fish, yogurt sauces, spices, and leftovers. They can become breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And for people who feel like they need something starchy to feel normal, a properly prepared sweet potato is often a better direction than many ultra-processed sides, especially when your alternative was something much saltier. Again, I do not want you to hear this as eat endless sweet potatoes. I want you to hear it as here is a more supportive choice if you want your plate to work with your blood pressure instead of against it. That is the mindset shift. I also want to mention mushrooms, even though they are not always the first thing people think about for blood pressure. One reason I value mushrooms is that they can replace heavier, saltier, more processed ingredients in a meal while still bringing texture and that savory satisfaction people often crave. And that can indirectly help the whole blood pressure picture. Mushrooms make it easier to go lighter without feeling deprived. They work in omelets, stir fries, soups, grain bowls, tacos, pasta, and mixed vegetable roasts. And when a food helps you reduce the amount of processed meat or salty packaged toppings on the plate, that matters more than people think. The same goes for onions and garlic. I'm grouping them together because I love them as flavor builders. If you are trying to lower blood pressure, one of the biggest challenges is learning how to make food taste good without leaning on excess salt, bottled sauces, or ultra-processed shortcuts. Onions and garlic are part of that solution. They help create depth, sweetness, aroma, and satisfaction. They make vegetables taste better. They make beans taste better. They make soups and stews taste alive. And if a lower sodium meal actually tastes good, you stop feeling like you are on punishment. That emotional piece matters. People abandon tasteless health plans every day. So if you look at this list as a whole, you may notice something interesting. I am not asking you to chase exotic ingredients from a specialty store. I am asking you to repeat a pattern: more greens, more nitrate-rich vegetables, more potassium-rich vegetables, more cruciferous vegetables, more real produce that helps your plate crowd out the stuff that drives pressure up, whether that is sodium, excess calories, or ultra-processed food. The point is not perfection. The point is direction. If your week is moving toward these foods more often, you are giving your cardiovascular system better raw material to work with. Now, let's talk about the mistakes people make, because this part is important. Mistake number 1 is assuming one healthy vegetable cancels out an entire unhealthy pattern. It does not. A side of broccoli does not erase a daily flood of restaurant sodium. A glass of beet juice does not give you immunity from highly processed food, poor sleep, or not taking prescribed medication. I love vegetables, but I am not going to lie to you and pretend they are magic. They are powerful because they work as part of a pattern. They help create a lower pressure environment in the body when the rest of your routine is moving in the same direction. Mistake number 2 is thinking vegetables only count when they are fresh from some beautiful farmer's market and arranged on a wooden board like a magazine spread. No. Frozen vegetables are incredibly useful. No salt added canned vegetables can be useful too, especially if affordability and convenience are real issues for you. I would much rather see you consistently eating frozen broccoli, frozen spinach, and canned low-sodium tomatoes than buying expensive fresh produce with good intentions and then throwing it away a week later because life got busy. Healthy blood pressure habits have to survive real life. Otherwise, they are just fantasy. Mistake number 3 is ruining a good vegetable with hidden sodium. This happens all the time. People say, "But I ate a salad." And then the salad came with salty dressing, cheese, croutons, deli meat, and some kind of sweet bottled glaze. And the total effect was not nearly as helpful as they imagined. Or they say, "I had vegetable soup, but the soup was from a can loaded with sodium." I am not shaming you. I just want you to become more observant. The label matters. The preparation matters. Your blood pressure does not care that something began as a vegetable if the final version is basically a salt delivery system. Mistake number 4 is making healthy food too complicated. If you tell yourself that every blood pressure supportive meal has to involve chopping 17 ingredients and washing 9 pans, you are setting yourself up to fail because tired people do not do complicated things consistently. Build a simpler system. Keep a box of greens. Keep frozen broccoli. Keep cherry tomatoes. Keep bell peppers. Roast a tray of vegetables twice a week. Bake a few sweet potatoes. Buy beets ready to use if you need to. Make the right choice the easy choice. Your future self is not more motivated than you are. Your future self just needs less friction. And mistake number 5, maybe the biggest one, is expecting your body to reward you instantly and dramatically. Sometimes blood pressure improves quickly when people clean up their diet, but sometimes the change is slower, especially if the vessels have been under stress for a long time. That does not mean the vegetables are doing nothing. It means healing is still a process. Think about what you are asking your body to do. You are asking it to manage fluid balance better, vascular tone better, inflammation better, and metabolic stress better. That takes repetition. So if you eat one good salad and then stare at the monitor waiting for fireworks, you may miss the point. What I usually encourage people to do is make a 7-day experiment out of this. Not a forever promise, just 7 days. For 1 week, try to include at least 2 of these blood pressure supportive vegetables every single day, and preferably more than that. Maybe spinach in the morning, tomatoes and peppers at lunch, broccoli or cabbage at dinner, maybe beets or arugula a few times that week. Then check your blood pressure in a consistent way. Same chair, same arm, similar time of day, after sitting quietly for a few minutes. Watch what happens. Your body's response is often more persuasive than any lecture I can give. And while you are doing that, pay attention to how you actually feel, not just the number. Do you feel less puffy, less sluggish, less snacky late at night? Do your meals keep you full longer? Does your food feel more alive, more colorful, more satisfying? These things matter because they tell you whether the habit is sustainable. Remember, the goal is not to survive a health kick. The goal is to build an eating style that protects your heart, your brain, your kidneys, and your future without making you miserable in the process. Otherwise, you will not keep doing it when life gets stressful. There is one more thing I need to say, especially for those of you who are trying to do everything naturally. If your blood pressure is repeatedly high, please do not hide behind vegetables to avoid getting evaluated. I love food as medicine, but I also respect actual medicine, and sometimes people need both. If your blood pressure is high enough that your doctor is recommending treatment, that is not a personal failure. That is information. Use the medication if it is appropriate. Use the vegetables too. Use sleep, walking, stress management, hydration, and lower sodium too. This is not a morality contest. It is about reducing risk. So if you want the short version of today's video, here it is. My favorite vegetables for healthy blood pressure are the ones that repeatedly bring your body what it actually needs. Leafy greens like arugula and spinach, mineral-rich greens like Swiss chard and beet greens, nitrate-rich beets, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts and cabbage, plus practical staples like tomatoes, carrots, bell peppers, and sweet potatoes. Because these foods help support blood vessel function, better sodium balance, better meal quality, and better long-term consistency. Not flashy, not magical, just deeply useful when you actually eat them often enough for them to matter. And if your refrigerator does not have any of these right now, that is okay. This is not the part where you feel guilty. This is the part where you make one better grocery trip. Pick 3, not 10. 3. Maybe spinach, broccoli, and tomatoes. Or arugula, beets, and bell peppers. Whatever feels realistic for you. Build from there. Because healthy blood pressure is usually not rescued by one giant heroic decision. It is shaped by the ordinary foods that keep showing up on ordinary days. And those ordinary days, added together, are what eventually become your life.